That bag of dog food in your kitchen right now, the one your dog may eat from tonight, is not just a bag of food, it is a label, a supply chain, a recall history, and in some cases a corporate owner you would never expect. And once you see what is behind these 12 familiar brands, the pet food aisle starts looking very different. We pulled FDA recall records, we read the AFCO label guidance. We traced who owns the names on the shelf. We cross-checked the cases where dog food did not just disappoint owners but triggered federal warnings, voluntary withdrawals, and documented illness. And the pattern is disturbing. We are not here to tell you every bowl is poison, and we are not blaming you for buying a brand you trusted. Most owners are doing the best they can with a confusing shelf and a dog who depends on them completely. The problem is that the front of the bag is written for your emotions, while the back of the bag is where the truth usually lives. Before the countdown starts, remember this. Complete and balanced does not mean the FDA approved that recipe before it reached your home. AFCO sets model standards and nutrient profiles. Companies can state that a food was formulated to meet a profile or that it passed animal feeding tests. Those are not the same thing. That difference is one of the keys to this whole investigation. Number 12 is Cesar. It looks small, neat, controlled, and premium. The kind of tray that feels safer because it is portioned and tidy. But Cesar is part of Mars Pet Care, the same giant pet ecosystem behind Pedigree, Royal Canin, and IAMS in the US market. So from the first brand on this list, the illusion begins. Different shelf position, different packaging, same corporate family. The warning with Cesar is not that every little tray is dangerous. The warning is that premium looking is not a safety standard. A small package can still belong to the same industrial system as the bulk bag. When you shop, do not let portion size, price, or a clean front label replace the questions that matter. Who makes it? What is the adequacy statement? And what does the ingredient panel actually say? Number 11 is IAMS. A lot of owners grew up seeing IAMS as the serious bag, the performance bag, the responsible bag. But in the US context, IAMS is also part of Mars Pet Care. That matters because Mars is not just a food company in the pet world. Mars also owns major veterinary businesses including Beneful, VCA, and Blue Pearl. The same ecosystem sells food, care, diagnostics, and trust with IAMS. The lesson is the value trap owners can spend more because a brand sounds more technical, more mature, more vet adjacent. But a technical brand name is not a nutrition audit. You still have to read the statement, look at the protein source, compare calories per cup, and check whether the food was actually tested in feeding trials or simply formulated on paper. Number 10 is Purina Dog Chow. This is one of the names that feels almost permanent. In American dog food, like it has always been there. Purina Dog Chow belongs to Nestlé Purina, the pet care arm of one of the largest food companies on earth. That does not automatically make the food unsafe, but it does tell you what you're really buying. Scale, shelf power distribution, and a formula designed to work for a mass market. This is where label reading matters. Value foods often compete by cost per pound, and cost pressure usually shows up somewhere. Grain-heavy formulas, plant protein doing some of the work, generic flavor systems, or a front label that makes the food feel meatier than the panel may justify. Your dog does not understand the branding, your dog only gets the formula, and that is the part owners miss. A cheap food can be useful in a tight household budget. But cheap should not be disguised as complete transparency. If the front of the bag is showing roasted meat, vegetables, farms, and happy dogs, the back of the bag should be able to explain itself without hiding behind vague flavor language. If it cannot, the price is not the only thing being reduced. Number 9 is Pedigree. The yellow bag is everywhere. It feels familiar, and familiarity is one of the strongest marketing tools in pet food. Pedigree is also Mars Pet Care. So now you have Cesar, IAMS, Pedigree, and later Royal Canin, all connecting back to the same corporate name. The shelf looks like competition. The ownership map says something else. Pedigree is a perfect example of why color and shape are not nutrition. Those red and yellow pieces are designed for the human buyer, not for the dog. Dogs do not need kibble to look like tiny vegetables or tiny chunks of meat. When artificial colors appear in a formula, ask the obvious question: if the color is not feeding the dog, who is it really for? This is not a small point. Color is one of the cheapest ways to create the illusion of variety. The owner sees a bowl that looks like meat, vegetables, and balance. The dog sees food. That gap between what you see and what the dog actually needs is where pet food marketing lives. Number 8 is Beneful. Beneful built its image around bright colors, visible variety, and a cheerful bowl. It belongs to Nestlé Purina. The controversy around Beneful has included lawsuits and allegations, including the Lucido case in 2015, but that case was dismissed. So we are going to be precise. The allegation is not the proof. The proof we can use is the regulatory contrast around ingredients like propylene glycol. Propylene glycol is banned in cat food under federal regulation because of its effect on cats, but it has been allowed in dog food uses. That is the kind of fact that should make an owner slow down. Legal does not always mean intuitive. Legal does not mean it belongs in the bowl you thought was simple. When a brand sells itself through color and comfort, the back panel deserves even more attention. Number 7 is Rachael Nutrish. This is the celebrity brand move. A human face, a kitchen feeling, a name that sounds closer to home than to a factory. But the pet food portfolio moved into post-consumer brands after Post bought select pet food brands from J.M. Smucker in 2023. Translation: the friendly celebrity label now sits inside the portfolio of a company better known for breakfast cereal. Nutrish also appears in the FDA's investigation page on reports of canine dilated cardiomyopathy, the heart disease investigation tied to certain diets, especially many grain-free formulas heavy in legumes or potatoes. The careful wording matters. The FDA named brands in reports. It did not prove one simple cause for every case. But if your natural dog food shows up in a federal investigation, you should at least stop treating the front of the bag as the whole story. Number 6 is Blue Buffalo. Blue Buffalo sold a powerful idea, real ingredients, natural language, a brand that felt like the alternative to big pet food. Then General Mills completed its acquisition of Blue Buffalo in 2018. The company behind Cheerios and Betty Crocker bought the brand that many owners saw as the anti-corporate choice. Blue Buffalo also appears on the FDA's DCM report list, and it has a history of public disputes over what was actually in its food. The point is not that every Blue Buffalo formula is the same. The point is that natural is not a force field. A premium story can still be owned by a processed food conglomerate, and a premium price can still require the same boring questions. Who formulates it, how is it tested, and what does the label prove? Before we move into the top 5, because this is where the recall history gets heavier, take a second to subscribe and hit like. It helps push this investigation to the pet owners who need to see it before the next bag goes in the cart. And do not skip ahead, because the final brands are not just marketing problems. They involve FDA warnings, a euthanasia, drug, and pet deaths. Number 5 is Royal Canin. Royal Canin is Mars Pet Care again, but the psychology is different. This is not the yellow supermarket bag. This is the clinical looking bag. The breed-specific bag, the veterinary channel bag, the one that can feel almost medical before you have even read the panel. That is why Royal Canin belongs in the conflict of trust section. Mars owns Royal Canin, and Mars also owns Beneful, VCA, and Blue Pearl. We are not saying your individual veterinarian is corrupt. We are saying the system deserves scrutiny when the food company also owns major pieces of the care system around the food. When a recommendation sounds medical, ask medical questions. What condition is this for? What nutrient target matters, and what evidence supports this exact diet? There is also the broader prescription diet problem. In Morvia, Mars Pet Care plaintiffs challenged the way prescription pet foods were marketed and sold, alleging that the diets did not contain drugs and were not FDA approved as drugs. That is litigation, not a simple final verdict on every product. But it exposes the question every owner should ask: is this a medicine, or is it food being sold through a medical-looking channel? Number 4 is Taste of the Wild. The name sounds rugged, ancestral, and independent. The owner behind it is Diamond Pet Foods, part of Shell and Campbell. Taste of the Wild also appears on the FDA's DCM investigation page, which means it belongs in the grain-free caution zone. Again, the honest warning is not grain-free automatically kills dogs. The honest warning is that the FDA received enough reports to name brands, and owners deserve to know that. But Taste of the Wild leads to something even more serious: Diamond's 2012 Salmonella infantis outbreak. A peer-reviewed outbreak report linked human Salmonella infections in the United States and Canada to contaminated dry dog food. That is the moment pet food stops being only a dog issue. The bag is in the kitchen. Scoop touches hands, the bowl touches the floor, children touch everything, and now we enter the top 3. These are the brands where the story moves from label skepticism into contamination history. Before we name them, remember the sport mix case sitting in the recall bank. In 2021, the FDA's public alert on sport mix and Midwestern pet foods documented more than 110 pet deaths and more than 210 illnesses tied to products with potentially fatal aflatoxin levels. Aflatoxin attacks the liver. The recall did not arrive before the harm. It arrived after. Number 3 is Kibbles, In Bits, and Olroy. We are grouping them because the recall history connects them, but the ownership language has to be exact. Kibbles In Bits is now in the post pet food lineage after post 2023 acquisition from Smucker. Olroy is Walmart's private label. The 2018 pentobarbital withdrawal happened under J.M. Smucker, the prior owner and manufacturer context for the recalled products. The FDA posted notice from February 2018 covered specific shipments of canned dog food under Gravy Train, Kibbles In Bits, Olroy, and Skippy after the FDA found pentobarbital. Pentobarbital is the drug used to euthanize animals. When that shows up in dog food, the question becomes brutal. What entered the supply chain, and why did a pet owner have to learn about it after cans had already been sold? Number 2 is Gravy Train. Gravy Train is one of the clearest examples of why cheap comfort branding can be dangerous when nobody reads the recall record. Like the other 2018 brands, today's corporate map is not the same as the recall era owner. But the recall history stays attached to the name because owners remember names, not corporate transactions. The FDA notice did not say every Gravy Train product forever was contaminated. It said specific canned products were voluntarily withdrawn after pentobarbital was detected. That distinction matters legally, but emotionally it is still shocking. A euthanasia drug in dog food sold to people who thought they were buying dinner for an animal that trusts them completely. Number 1 is Hill's Science Diet. This is the brand that many owners associate with veterinary trust, white coats, clinic shelves, and careful nutrition. Hill's belongs to Colgate-Palmolive, the toothpaste and soap company. That ownership fact alone is not the scandal. The scandal is what happened in 2019. On January 31st, 2019, Hills announced a recall of select canned dog foods for excessive vitamin D. The recall expanded in March and May. Then the FDA sent Hills a warning letter in November 2019 saying the company had received vitamin premix with excessive vitamin D, that some samples contained vitamin D at up to 33 times the safe upper limit, and that Hills failed to follow its own procedures. Too much vitamin D is not a harmless paperwork issue. The FDA warns it can cause vomiting, loss of appetite, increased thirst, increased urination, weight loss, and kidney dysfunction. So when the brand that feels medical has a vitamin D recall and an FDA warning letter about its own procedures, the message is simple. Vet-associated branding does not exempt a company from the same hard questions. This is the pattern. Cesar, IAMS, Pedigree, and Royal Canin lead back to Mars. Purina, Dog Chow, and Beneful lead back to Nestle Purina. Blue Buffalo leads to General Mills. Nutrish and parts of the old Smucker pet portfolio lead to Post. Hills leads to Colgate Palmolive. Taste of the Wild leads to Diamond. The aisle says choice. The ownership map says concentration. And the regulation is not the safety blanket most owners imagine. The FDA regulates pet food, but it does not approve every dog food recipe before it goes on the shelf. EFCO does not approve your bag either. Recalls are often voluntary, and the public notice usually comes after product has already moved through stores, kitchens, bowls, and bodies. That is why a recall is not just a correction, it is a timestamp. It tells you the moment the public was warned, not the moment the risk began. The food had already been manufactured, shipped, stocked, purchased, opened, scooped, and fed. For a pet owner, that delay is the part that matters. The health risk is not abstract. Aflatoxin can damage the liver. Excess vitamin D can damage the kidneys. Salmonella in dry dog food can reach humans in the house. Pentobarbital should not be in food at all. These are not internet rumors. These are the categories that appear in FDA alerts, warning letters, and outbreak reports. And if your dog has already eaten one of these brands, the answer is not to panic or throw away medical advice. The answer is to become harder to fool, save lot numbers when a recall hits, keep the bag until it is finished so you can identify the product. Watch for sudden vomiting, appetite changes, thirst, lethargy, or jaundice. When a recall involves toxins, and call a veterinarian if symptoms appear. Information is not fear, information is leverage. That is why the answer is not blind panic. The answer is a better filter. Here is the checklist we would use before buying any dog food after this investigation. First, find the APCO nutritional adequacy statement. If it says the food was formulated to meet nutrient profiles, that means the formula was built to match a standard on paper. If it says animal feeding tests were used, that tells you the food was actually fed under a protocol. Feeding tests are not magic, but they are stronger than a spreadsheet. Second, read the first 5 ingredients like you are investigating the bag, not admiring it. Look for a named animal protein or a named meal. Chicken meal is at least named meat meal, or animal byproduct is more opaque. If the front shows roasted meat, but the panel leans on vague meals, gluten, flavor, and color, believe the panel. Third, ask who formulates the diet. WSAVA's nutrition guidance tells owners to ask whether a qualified nutritionist is involved, what quality control steps exist, whether the company tests ingredient and finished food, and whether it can provide a complete nutrient analysis. A company that wants your monthly money should be able to answer basic questions. Fourth, stop treating artificial color as harmless decoration. Your dog does not need red pieces, green pieces, or a fake stew look to get nutrition. If the color exists mostly to make the food look better to you, that tells you who the marketing is really feeding. Fifth, be careful with prescription and veterinary diets, but do not make reckless medical changes. If your dog is on a therapeutic diet for a real condition, talk to a veterinarian before switching, but ask sharper questions. What is the therapeutic target? What ingredient or nutrient level matters? How long is this needed? And is there evidence for this exact product? The point of this video is not that every brand on this list must vanish from every home tomorrow morning. The point is that trust should be earned on the back of the bag, not borrowed from the front. Your dog cannot read natural. Your dog cannot check an FDA recall page. Your dog cannot ask who owns the clinic, the food, and the recommendation. So the next time you stand in front of the shelf, do not ask which bag has the prettiest dog on it. Ask who owns it. Ask whether the adequacy statement says feeding tests or formulated. Ask whether the protein is named. Ask whether the company has a recall history you can live with. Ask whether the medical looking recommendation is backed by evidence or just by a sales channel. And if this is what we found in everyday dog food, imagine what is hiding in treats, dental chews, raw food, and the prescription diet sold behind the counter. Those categories have their own recall histories, their own markups, and their own conflicts. We are investigating those next, and what we found will shock you. Subscribe for more pet food investigations and turn on notifications so you do not miss the next one. This is Pet Food Insider. Stay informed, stay skeptical, and read the back of the bag before you fill that bowl.